It was supposed to be perfect. Christmas Eve, the night of joy. The house, bathed in the soft glow of Christmas lights, felt warm, almost magical. Snow was falling outside, and the smell of cinnamon and pine filled the air. My two younger sisters and I were scattered around the living room, placing the final ornaments on the tree. Mom was in the kitchen, humming her favorite carol while preparing dinner, her voice floating through the house. "Just a few more minutes, please," I begged, trying to stretch out the magic of the evening. Mom laughed softly from the kitchen. "You'll be asleep before you know it. You know Santa won't come if you're awake." We all groaned, but we climbed upstairs, too excited to sleep, yet too tired to stay up much longer. As I lay in bed trying to quiet my racing thoughts, I heard my sisters giggling under their blankets. I smiled, thinking about how perfect everything felt. And then I heard it, a sound that shattered the peace. A scream. It ripped through the air. It wasn't just a scream, it was a cry of pure terror, a sound I had never heard from my mom. It froze me in place. The scream didn't sound human. It was raw, primal, and filled with agony. I shot out of bed. My heart was pounding in my chest. My younger sisters were already at my door, wide-eyed and panicked. "Mom!" I shouted, my voice barely above a whisper. We rushed toward the hallway, our bare feet slapping against the cold wooden floors. The house was dark, save for the glow of the Christmas lights from the living room. And that's when I saw him. A man, standing in the doorway of the living room. He wasn't someone I recognized, not a neighbor, not a family friend. He had a mask on, his face obscured, but there was something in his stance that made my stomach twist. He wasn't lost. He was here with a purpose. "Shh," he said, his voice like gravel, his finger pressed to his lips in a cold, mocking gesture. I froze. Every inch of my body screamed to run, but I couldn't move. The air felt thick. My sisters clung to me, but I couldn't even comfort them. I could barely breathe. I heard a faint rustling from behind the tree. That's when I saw her. My mother, crouched behind the tree, clutching her stomach. Blood, so much of it, was pooling around her. I wanted to scream, to call out to her, but nothing came out. "Mom," I choked out. But her eyes, she wasn't looking at me anymore. She was looking at him. Her eyes were wide, begging. It was like she was pleading with us to leave, to run, but there was no place to go. The man took a step forward. "I'm just here to see my daughters," he said, his voice eerily calm. "I had to make sure you wouldn't ruin my Christmas. You won't get in the way anymore." It clicked. The mask, the coldness in his voice. It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't some random person. It was him. Clifford, my mother's ex-husband, my father. The man who had been in and out of our lives, who had never been there when we needed him, but always there when he wanted something. His voice had that same edge it always had. That edge that made you think you could never truly trust him. But I never expected this. I never expected him to. The blade glinted in the weak light, and in that moment I realized what was happening. He was going to kill her. I couldn't stop it. He lifted the knife high, and I saw the fury in his eyes. Fury that had been building for years. The divorce, the custody battles, everything. All of it had led up to this. The sound of the blade cutting through flesh was the worst thing I had ever heard. I couldn't move. I couldn't even think. My sisters were silent, holding on to me, their faces pale with fear. But I couldn't comfort them. I couldn't comfort myself. With each strike, a piece of me broke. I felt the weight of the years we had spent waiting for something normal, something safe. And now, it was gone. In the blink of an eye, everything we knew, everything we loved, was taken from us. The man's expression was blank, his eyes cold, as if this was just another task to him. It didn't matter who it was just something he had to finish. And then, as quickly as it had started, it stopped. He turned to leave, his footsteps slow but deliberate, as if he had all the time in the world. That's when I heard the sirens. When the police arrived, my mom was gone. They found her lifeless, her eyes wide open in a silent scream, as though she were still trapped in the moment, still begging for us to leave. But Clifford was gone. They never found him. The mask, the blood, the broken promises, all of it gone. For weeks we tried to make sense of it, but there was no sense. Just the hollow feeling of knowing that we would never see her again. The holidays became unbearable. The house felt emptier with each passing year. The Christmas lights didn't sparkle as bright. The smell of turkey, once so comforting, felt like a cruel joke. And every year, without fail, I would hear it. The faint sound of footsteps in the dark. A whisper. A flicker of light. I would think, for just a moment, that maybe, just maybe, he had come back to finish what he started. That maybe I hadn't heard the last of him. I learned something that night, something no one tells you when you grow up. Not all monsters look like monsters. Some of them wear masks. Some of them are the people you're supposed to trust the most. And sometimes, the worst monsters never get caught. They slip through the cracks, hiding in plain sight, leaving you to wonder if you'll ever truly be safe. It was Christmas Eve in New York, the snow falling like glitter against the bright lights of the city. And yet, there was an eerie stillness in the air. The usual hustle was muted tonight. No carolers on the streets, no tourists snapping photos. Just the faint sound of footsteps in the snow and the distant hum of traffic. The cold crept up your spine, almost like it had been there for years, never quite leaving. I had walked this route countless times, but tonight, it felt different. St. Patrick's Cathedral, towering above everything else on Fifth Avenue, looked almost otherworldly against the backdrop of the holiday lights. The Gothic architecture, the heavy stone walls, the high windows, everything seemed to hum with energy. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting inside. I wasn't here because I wanted to be. The holidays had never been the same since Mom passed away, but she always insisted we attend midnight mass every Christmas. It was one of those traditions I hated, but I couldn't let go of it. Maybe it was my way of holding on to her memory. The church doors creaked as I pushed them open, stepping into the dark, candlelit space. The air inside was cool, heavy with the scent of incense. The choir was singing softly in the background, their voices weaving through the high arches of the cathedral. I walked down the aisle, the floor creaking under my boots, and sat in one of the back pews, taking in the scene. The place was nearly empty, just a few scattered souls lost in their prayers. The mass began, the priest's voice echoing through the church. Despite the peaceful surroundings, I felt an unsettling weight in the air. Something wasn't right. Maybe it was the silence between the hymns, or the way the shadows seemed to stretch longer than they should. The flickering candles created a dance of light and darkness, and I couldn't help but feel that something, or someone, was watching me. Then I heard it. David. A whisper. Soft but unmistakable. My stomach dropped, and I froze. I turned around, my heart pounding in my chest. The pews were empty behind me, just shadows and flickering candlelight. I rubbed my eyes, thinking it was just a trick of the mind. But then, David. It came again, louder this time. It was her voice, my mom's voice. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I hadn't heard her voice in years. I hadn't even thought about her this much in a long time. She was gone. I stood up, my legs shaking, and turned around again. This time, a figure stood at the entrance of the church. A man in a long black coat, his face hidden in the shadows. My breath hitched. He didn't move. He just stood there, watching me. As I stared at the figure, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, I heard footsteps behind me. Father Thomas, the priest, walked by, his eyes meeting mine for a moment before he took his place at the altar. His expression seemed a bit off, like he was distracted, or maybe even troubled by something I couldn't see. But then again, this was St. Patrick's Cathedral, one of the busiest, most famous churches in the world. What was he worried about? I didn't have time to dwell on it because the whispering came again, this time much louder and more urgent. "David, come closer." I turned back to the entrance, but the man in the black coat was gone. My heart was pounding in my chest. The shadows in the church felt heavier now, suffocating. I wasn't alone. I could feel it, but I wasn't the only one who felt it. An elderly woman in a long coat sat a few rows in front of me, clutching her rosary beads tightly. She was trembling, her eyes wide with fear, constantly glancing toward the altar. When she caught my gaze, she whispered, "You shouldn't be here. Not tonight." Her voice was shaky, almost too quiet to hear. I wanted to ask her what she meant, but before I could, she looked away and muttered something I couldn't understand. The whole atmosphere felt wrong. I had always thought the church was a place for peace, a sanctuary from the noise of life. But tonight, it felt like a prison. My mother used to bring me here every Christmas, even when I didn't want to come. She always said the church was where we found hope, but I never understood it. Now, standing here, something in my gut told me that there was a darkness within these walls that I'd never seen. I tried to push the thoughts out of my head. I was just being paranoid. The holidays had always been hard, and with Mom gone, it was only getting worse. I needed closure, and maybe this Mass, this tradition she left behind, could bring that. But then the voice came again. This time, it was not just a whisper. It was clear. It was desperate. "David, please, I'm here." I froze, my breath catching in my throat. I knew what it meant. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't control myself. I stood up and began walking toward the altar, each step feeling like it took me deeper into a dream I didn't want to be in. My feet moved on their own. The church felt alive, the shadows closing in around me, pressing in from all sides. Suddenly, the doors to the crypt at the back of the church slammed open. A chill ran through my body. I had never seen those doors open before. From the darkened crypt emerged a figure, not a man, not my mother, but something else entirely. Her face was pale, her eyes empty, as if they were not hers at all. It was her, Mom, but twisted, her body contorted and stretching toward me with unnatural speed. The shadows around her seemed to pulse, reaching for me. "David, help me." Her voice cracked, filled with agony. I tried to step back, but my feet wouldn't move. The air around me felt thick, suffocating. I felt her hands, cold and spectral, reach for me. Her touch burned, freezing me in place. That's when I saw it, the truth. The church wasn't just a sanctuary, it was a prison. My mother hadn't died peacefully. She had been part of an old ritual, a dark curse that had bound her to this church, to this night. Every year she had been forced to call out to anyone who would listen, drawing them in to replace the souls who had been lost before her. I wasn't the first. I wouldn't be the last. I fought with everything in me to break free, to run, but it was too late. I felt myself slipping into the shadows. The last thing I remember was her face, twisted, pleading, and the cold hands that wrapped around me, pulling me down. I woke up outside the church, gasping for air, the bells tolling loudly behind me. The snow was still falling, but the church, it was quiet. The doors were closed, locked as they should be. But as I stumbled to my feet, something caught my eye. I turned back toward the church, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. There was a plaque on the wall I hadn't noticed before, weathered and old. In memory of the lost souls bound to the church's faith, may they rest in peace. And beneath the plaque, a single name was scratched into the stone. David. David, completely overwhelmed by the weight of the moment, felt lost in the vastness of the church. His mother's face hovered before him, distorted, twisted, as if time itself had corrupted her image. Every step, felt like an emotional battle. On one hand, he tried to make sense of what was happening, but on the other, he felt like he had become trapped in the past, unable to escape. Then, just as he thought he might make sense of it all, another revelation hit him. David forced his eyes open wider, and what he saw was nothing like what he expected. The figure he had heard calling his name, David, was not an illusion. The crypt doors had opened, and an eerie voice echoed from within. Before he could process it, when he looked back at the plaque on the wall, something strange caught his eye. His name was still etched there, but now there was something more, something that didn't make sense. Was this real? Or was it just another trick of the mind, another illusion meant to keep him from understanding the truth? Was he really trying to escape? Or had he become part of something much darker? His surroundings began to blur, the church feeling less like a place of worship and more like a prison. The shadows that had once felt comforting now pressed closer, and the air grew thick, suffocating. David took another step forward, but his legs felt like they were made of stone. He tried to fight it, but he couldn't. He was losing himself, falling deeper into something he couldn't understand. Then, just as he was about to make a decision, just as he thought he might break free, he heard one last whisper. "David, you've come too late." As David opened his eyes once more, he was back where he started, sitting in his pew. Nothing had changed, yet everything felt different. The church around him was silent, the choir's voices fading away. He looked up, and the plaque was still there, the name still etched into the stone. But then, as he glanced toward the back of the church, something caught his eye. In the far corner, a shadow moved. It was quick, almost imperceptible, but it was there, and with it the softest, most haunting of whispers. "David, it's not over." It was Christmas Eve. The house, decorated with garlands and fairy lights, looked like something out of a holiday postcard. The smell of pine and cinnamon drifted through the air as I stepped inside Julia's home. Her family, a lively bunch of 10, was gathered in the living room, exchanging gifts and sharing laughs. For years, they'd invited me to their Christmas dinner, making me feel like a part of their family after I lost mine. This year was different, though. Something was off. Julia's eyes kept darting toward the front door, and I could see the tension in her posture. She was trying to smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Are you okay?" I asked quietly, noticing how her fingers gripped the edge of her glass tightly. "Just worried about Brent," she replied, her voice low, eyes flicking toward the door again. "He might show up." Brent, her ex-husband, the one who had terrorized her for years, leaving nothing but scars in his wake. They'd married young at 18 and divorced 5 years later. Everyone knew it was coming. He was reckless, abusive. Every warning sign was there, but Julia had been too blinded by love to see it. And now, months after their bitter divorce, he'd lost custody of their son, Peter, just weeks ago. I'd met Brent only a few times, but that was enough to feel the darkness around him. There was something unsettling in the way he spoke, something dangerous in his presence. A few days ago, I had told him he couldn't see Peter until after the holidays. He hadn't taken the rejection well. In fact, he had gotten a restraining order against him, but I knew he wouldn't let it stop him. "You're with family now," I reassured her, squeezing her hand. She managed a weak smile, but I could see the worry etched deep in her eyes. Later that evening, as we gathered around the Christmas tree, a knock at the door made the room freeze. Julia's face went pale, and the laughter that had filled the room died instantly. "I'll get it," I said, trying to brush it off as a random visitor. But as I opened the door, my breath caught in my throat. Standing there in the cold night was Brent, dressed as Santa Claus. He wore the red suit, the hat, the fake white beard that only half covered his face. But this wasn't the jolly old man you see at the mall. His eyes were cold, focused, and he clutched a massive, bulging sack over his shoulder. "Get inside," he growled, his tone cold and commanding. I stepped back, but before I could say anything, he shoved me aside and barged in. "What the hell is this?" Julia's voice cracked as she clutched Peter close to her chest, her face pale with fear. "I came to bring gifts for my son," Brent sneered. "It's Christmas after all." A silence fell over the room as everyone froze, unsure of what to do. Brent's gaze shifted, his eyes narrowing as they settled on Julia. "You need to leave, Brent," I said, trying to sound firm. He didn't move. Instead, he reached into his sack and pulled out something long and metallic, wrapped in shimmering paper. He tore it open with force, revealing a shotgun. "BR, what the hell?" I yelled, my heart racing. Without warning, he raised the gun, pointing it around the room. His voice was eerily calm. "You all turned on me. You took everything from me. I just want my family back." Panic erupted. Julia screamed and pulled Peter behind her. The others scrambled for cover, but I froze. My heart pounded in my chest as the full horror of the situation set in. Brent's eyes were wild. He pulled the trigger. The sound of the gunshot echoed through the house as he fired at Julia's father, who fell to the ground with a sickening thud. Then he chased Julia's mother into the kitchen, firing at her. Her scream was cut short. My body moved on instinct, dragging Julia and Peter to the floor behind the couch for cover. My ears were ringing as I watched the chaos unfold. Julia's dad was already gone. Her mom would never come back. And Peter, sweet, innocent Peter, was in the middle of it all. "My family?" Brent was muttering, his voice growing more frantic. "You took my everything. I want it back. I want it all back." I felt the cold sweat on my forehead as I pulled Julia and Peter toward the back hallway. "Stay here. Call the police," I whispered, shoving my phone into her hands. "I'll try to draw him away." I crawled toward the front door, hoping Frank would see me from the kitchen and follow. I heard his voice, low, angry. "Elisa, you're not trying to leave the party early, are you?" I bolted. But before I could make it to the door, I felt a sharp pain in my leg. The world spun as I went down, my body crashing into the floor. Brent was walking toward me now, gun raised, his expression twisted in anger and pain. I saw Julia's brother and uncle lying in pools of blood nearby. My mind screamed for me to get up, but my body wouldn't obey. And then, just as Brent aimed the gun at my face, Julia appeared. She threw herself at him, screaming, "Run! Get out of here!" I barely managed to crawl, dragging my injured leg as fast as I could toward the door. The world around me blurred in and out, and every sound felt muffled, as if I were trapped in a nightmare. I reached the neighbor's house, barely able to knock on their door before collapsing into their arms. And then, from inside Julia's house, 2 more gunshots rang out. The police arrived minutes later, but it was too late. The chaos had already claimed so many lives. They found Brent sitting in the living room, his body still in his Santa suit, blood staining the floor. Peter was in his lap, silent, terrified, the shotgun lying at his feet beside the body of Julia. Frank was arrested, charged with multiple counts of murder. His face was cold and empty as he was hauled away, his life unraveling in front of him. But for Sophie, there was no peace. She'd lost her mother, father, and so many others in the blink of an eye. And despite what Frank had done, there was still a part of her that wanted to understand why. Days later, Sophie would tell me that she found a tape in the wreckage of their house. It was Frank's voice, desperate and tortured. He spoke of losing his family, how everything had been taken from him, the pain of being abandoned, of being made the villain. And as Sophie listened to the tape, she faced a choice. Could she forgive the man who had once been her father? Or would she let the anger consume her too? It was a question with no easy answer, no closure. The wound was deep, and it would never heal. That Christmas, a holiday meant for family and joy, had become a symbol of loss, of lives shattered, families torn apart, and a pain so deep, it would never truly fade. For Sophie, the search for peace would never end.